But we want to go ahead and have our next speaker come up, your state senator, Wendy Rogers.
Happy Easter, everyone. Tomorrow we could say he is risen. He is risen indeed. And I still count myself lucky to be an American in Arizona. And this is my district. How many of you had me knock on your door here? Okay, I like to walk around, so if you can follow me, great. If not, too bad. I want to answer questions because I'm here for you. And we know that the lady who sits in the seat on the 9th floor at the Capitol has vetoed more bills than anyone ever in the history of gubernatorial politics in Arizona. And so you're going to ask me, well, Senator, how can you get anything done? You sent me to the Arizona Senate to represent you. You sent me to put bills forward that would protect our Second Amendment rights, that would fight against medical tyranny, that would fight against educational tyranny, that would uphold the rights of parents, that would uphold the rights of the born and the newly born, and ultimately that would attempt to restore election integrity. And so we have done that, my colleagues and I, and as former supervisor, soon to be again, possibly Supervisor Todd House said, I guess I am the most conservative because I won a ratings system where I'm apparently the most conservative on the pecking order there. But I have to say I don't really try, it just sort of happens. And you'll ask me, well, things are really bleak and dire in our country. We have a president of the United States indicted. We have that also. We have mentally ill people shooting up schools. We have just very troubling sort of erosion of our social fabric. And as I think probably Mark Lamb alluded to, it's because we need faith and family back in our midst. We need to go to church. We need to worship life, not the culture of death. We need to embrace marriage between a man and a woman. And so I stand before you today with hope. I'm a pragmatist, so I will continue to fight the fight. Now you're going to say, well, you only have a 1-vote majority in the Arizona Senate, and you only have a 1-vote majority in the Arizona House. So what prospect for success do we have? Well, let me tell you a couple of things. Did you know that the Arizona Senate is vested with the responsibility of approving nominees for department heads in the state government? Did you know that? Did you know that we are very diligent and thorough about this? So, for example, when the nominee for the Department of Health was submitted, she was questioned and reviewed and found not acceptable. So we denied her. Well, just understand that all these different department heads come through us. And there are a lot more Wendy Rogerses in the state Senate this time than there used to be. So we take this responsibility very, very seriously. And we have sort of held the line, if you will, the Arizona Senate in particular, because we have this power. Did you know that the state legislatures, not the federal government, but the state legislatures, according to the U.S. Constitution, have the plenary power over elections? Be very vigilant as you see legislation winding itself through the process, because we're not done yet. And we will do everything we can to recoup our plenary power. So I'm going to open it up to questions, and if you'd stand up and just shout it out, I'll answer you.
Bill Gates, did you subpoena him?
Bill Gates, did I subpoena him? No.
What?
Why? It's not something in my elections committee that was part of us hearing evidence to craft legislation. There is the question overall about the elections committee conducting a criminal investigation. Please understand that a criminal investigation is conducted by law enforcement. The legislature conducts investigations, and I have in 3 of my meetings, and had very cogent data presentations put forward. And with those data points, we have crafted legislation and SCR, Senate Concurrent Resolutions. Next question.
I have one.
Go ahead.
So, you're talking about, we were talking, or the chairman was talking about the breakdown of morality in our country. What's changed? So, what I see, along with the invasions in California, the leftist invasions, we're showing this big we're turning leftist with the balance in Arizona because of the large metropolitan areas too, in terms of where there's left. But what are we doing about the leftist indoctrination in schools? Our kids now are being subjected to the most leftist,
Heinous.
What are we doing about it?
What are we doing about the rot in our schools? You know what you need to do? You need to go to the school board meetings and raise holy heck. If you don't listen to Garrett Lewis in the morning on KNST out of Tucson, you need to, because he talks every day about this. He talks about these school boards where parents are rising up. My office mate, Anthony Kern, senator from Glendale, had 1,000 people at the Glendale school board 3 weeks ago. And some woman with cat ears or something was, you know who I'm talking about, right? Yeah, so my colleague led a whole group to that meeting. This is where we make the difference. This is where we take back our schools, because our children are the most precious. And they are coming after our children. Did you see on the news yesterday that there's a school board in California that voted 3-2 to not let parents know when their kids are thinking about switching genders? Are you kidding me? That's criminal. Okay, so we passed a law a year ago that those surgeries can't happen in Arizona under the age of 18 by one vote. But my answer to your question is, that's a very local thing that you can have a huge impact with. And if 30 people show up, great. But if 130 people show up, they cave. You see, the left hopes that you're not paying attention. The left hopes that you are cowed and you are quiet. The left hopes you do not show up in numbers. You need to show up. You need to be vocal, strident, combative, and not back down. Next question.
Is there anything that you can do legislatively to rein in our state universities in their enrollment applications, putting all the different pronouns on there?
Yes, the question is, what can the state do to rein in universities? The Board of Regents, we ought to just do away with.
Yes.
Okay? And you ask about pronouns. My pronouns are Carrie Lake 1.
Yes.
Donald Trump 1. And beware of candidates running for office who won't admit or say that 2020 was stolen, where they obfuscate and tap dance. Beware of politicians who will not say 2022 was stolen and that Arizona is the laughingstock, i.e. Maricopa County, is the laughingstock of not this nation, but the world. Other countries email me and tell me this, and they email Carrie Lake and tell her that. Next question.
I wanted to ask about Maricopa County. Has there been any ramifications from the 2022, and also what is going to change in 2024 in terms of?
Okay, the question is, what's going to happen to Maricopa County? First of all, where are we with the Carrie Lake lawsuit? There are two issues now being sorted out to do with the Carrie Lake lawsuit. One is sanctions, and you say to me, oh, Wendy, this is so bad that they're even talking about sanctioning Carrie Lake. Silver lining, silver lining. More information now can come out in that argument to do with sanctions. Next point, they remanded one of the 7 points, the signature verification aspect, back to the Maricopa County Superior Court. We are in a holding pattern now to see how that goes based on first this sanctions debate point. Personally, I'm a glass half full kind of gal. I'm an optimist. So much information has come out. Namely, my 23rd of January hearing, the most information came out. If any of you were watching, you would have seen a hour and a half laydown of all the signature verification, non-verifications, if you will. All of that's in the public record. Do you understand what that means? That means it can be used in a court of law. This is what I'm saying. Things aren't always as they seem. And I am an optimist. Does anyone know about the 1916, over 100 years ago, court case in Arizona where the governor was supposedly elected, the challenger challenged it, and almost a year later, the Arizona Supreme Court overturned the gubernatorial election and put the challenger in the seat. And the first guy had a year's worth of pay to pay back. So when things seem the bleakest, it is so important that we soldier on. Every morning, you have to get up. This is what I do. Ask my husband, Hal, of 45 years. Stand up, dear. He's a hero, huh? Lives with a type A wife. It's okay. I get up every morning, and I do 25 push-ups. I know I should increase it more and more, but that's enough. And I think about, am I going to be optimistic today? Am I going to lean forward in the saddle today? Am I going to go and get one thing done for the cause today? Yes, I am. Yes, we are. We must. Because if you quit, you lose. If we quit, we lose. And this country's too important for us. Too important to the 250 years of blood and treasure spilled. I'm a 5th generation military career officer. My dad and mom, my grandpa, my great-grandpa, my great-great-grandpa, they would turn over in their graves if they saw me give up. This Grandma Wendy does not give up, okay? That's what my grandkids say. And so Carrie Lake is a great friend, and she and I talk from time to time. And she said to me one night, she said, you never know what little glimmer of light will make the difference. You never know what little strand of yarn we pull out of the skein that will unravel it all. We don't know. God knows. And He expects us to persevere and to go after every glimmer of light, every strand of yarn, every possibility. We have to grab with gusto, with faith, perseverance, and tenacity. And we're just so glad that we can celebrate Easter. We will be, Hal and I, at a 3-hour vigil with our kids tonight. Grandkids will sleep through it, that's fine. But how lucky we are to do that. We have to fight for that, though. We have to fight to keep it. And I will fight for you. And I ask you to vote to re-elect me. And I want to introduce, okay, this is Pam Burks.
Listen, what I want to add to all of this is her fortitude and what they do and what they're trying to do. I don't care how many bills Cartel Katie vetoes, it's because we still have the 10 Commandments. Maybe people don't listen to them, but their bills are like the 10 Commandments. They are telling people this is our standards, our morals. We believe in them. Veto them if you want. Don't do them if you want. But for God's sakes, we're not going to have her stop doing it. Thank you, Wendy.
Thank you. Thank you. And Pam's always there. She texts me, gives me input. I get back to her. All of you make so much difference. Jack.
Yeah, I just got one question.
Jack does. You know, hey Rogers, get on the ball here. You know, they text me, and I text them back. But it's because I don't work for the President of the Senate, although I respect him deeply, Warren Peterson. I don't work for the governor. I don't work for the GOP. I work for you. And least of all do I work for lobbyists. They run when they see me. I work for you. Yes, ma'am.
I just want to say thank you. Not only are you helping with elections, but you also help in healthcare. You passed 2 great bills last year, 1162 and 1469, and you've been instrumental in helping pass some of the ones that we are bringing forward this year, like 1254. And I appreciate everything that you're doing, and thank you for helping the chronic pain and rare disease community of Arizona.
Well, God bless you. Thank you. I used to be a social worker. A lot of people don't know that. So I have a medical background before I started flying jets. So the medical bills have a very special meaning to me. I also have a colleague who's a registered nurse, Janae Shamp, and she's from Surprise, and she's great. I mean, she's a prodigious outputter of legislation. Another favorite of mine is Justine Watsack, who has a adult disabled child, and the amount of on-the-ground knowledge that these conservative women, Republican legislators have is just inspirational. And so, you know, we have a wealth of talent. And then young people come to me and say, I want to get into politics. And this happened 2 days ago. I want to get into politics. I said, you need to go to college and get a real degree and a real job and lead, and then come back to serve in politics after you've done that. I said, go be a police officer. Go to the military. Own a business. Be responsible. Don't just major in political science pre-law, get a graduate degree, and then come to work at the Senate. Don't do that. And they always give me that deer in the headlights look because that's not the answer they want. But that's the answer I give them.
I got a question real quick. Resolution 1037 brought up by Anthony Kern, who's doing a great job, by the way. Good friend of mine. He really is. Now, if the plenary power is vested in the state legislatures to oversee, conduct elections, including changing procedures and resolutions, then that's got to be the way to get around the governor, because you don't need a signature. And the only thing you got to worry about, I guess, is Cartel Fontes. But if he doesn't agree with it, then you can sue, and you have the plenary power. So that's something that, as
Did everyone hear
Arizonans,
that?
Yeah, we
Okay,
need to
you
keep.
just explained it all. Thank you. I didn't plan to. Senate concurrent resolution 1037. I don't know all the numbers. Too many numbers. Too few brain bites. 1037 is, and I'm not just saying this because the cat's out, letting the cat out of the bag, but what it is, and I feel pretty proud of it, because I office with Kern. SCR 1037 doesn't require the governor. It's a Senate concurrent resolution. All it requires is the Senate and the House. It's genius. And so what it says is that we, the state legislature, reclaim the plenary power. Now you're going to say, well, they're going to shoot this down. Sure. So that's going to go to the Secretary of State, and that's going to frame how he needs to do the right thing. And he may take us to court. And you know what I say? Bring it on.
Bring it on.
Advanced pouring machines. Advanced components into the voting machines that are made and manufactured and distributed outside of the state of Arizona.
So do some other, yes.
All machines
Yes.
in general. But, we'll take a week to get here.
Jack,
Yes, I got it.
this guy texts me. Jack Montacchione.
Yeah. Anyway, a question I got, and I'm wondering if we can get the state, the General Assembly, everybody up there, to endorse maybe a district attorney down here locally to file criminal charges against Hobbs, okay, for election interference, because I read Abe's report, and it's very obvious, what you put together too. I mean, I want to see some fire back after what happened to our President Trump.
Okay, the question is, can the legislature appoint a law enforcement official to go after the governor? Probably not. You're not going to have what is required to advance the cause, if you will, requires law enforcement, which we don't have control over right now, to do what you're asking. So to answer your question, it relies on the courts. Now you're going to say, well, then we're cooked.
Yeah, right.
Not necessarily. Abe Hamaday's case is what Jack is asking about. That was heard in Mojave County. Abe Hamaday claims he has enough provisional ballots to show that he won, and needs it to be heard again in Mojave County. And that's where that is right now. Ma'am.
I know that when they were counting all the votes and everything, and there was the I think it was the Maricopa County Recorder's Office, there was like armed people outside of there, and so we don't know what's happening going into there. And then we hear about them counting, and they're like dripping out the votes, and it's like I feel like there's people inside cooking the books, and I don't know that were you guys able to have access to oversee the counting of the votes, because that's so critical. And I feel like, everybody kind of feels like nobody was able to, have eyes on anything, that was conservative.
So your question is sort of a combination question of how do we have eyes on? How can we verify the correct handling of the votes, the correct counting of the votes? We have had various bills address all these facets, and so, as Pam said, even though they might get vetoed, it is chronicled, it is documented, and that is what I can say we have done. Oh, if I hear you. If you could review the testimony that we had in my committee that one particular time, it's very detailed, it's very credible. And so, again, my job, even though I knew that it was a situation of having bills vetoed, what's more important, I felt, and my colleagues felt, and my leadership felt, was for us to at least get it out there in the public eye. Because, what's the first step? Is exposure, right? And we have done that. Okay, that was the last question.
Yeah, I'm coming up to pull the plug, okay?